James is joining us from a small town 2 hours north of Toronto. So I imagine it's cold and dark. There we go. There's some whimsy. So James.
Hi.
Quit cranking and tell us how, tell us about growing up at the Kensington Market area of Toronto with all the bakeries, bohemian shops, and art galleries. And with all those bakeries, how you stayed so thin.
I stayed thin, running away from the tough guys in the neighborhood. That beautiful place to grow up, a very diverse neighborhood. And my parents ran an inner city mission that was an outreach to immigrant families. So it was really the hub of the neighborhood. My dad was sort of known by everybody and just a magical place to live. I remember we had a big gymnasium attached to the building, and we lived up in an apartment above it. And I remember there's a cultural group of Portuguese dancers. They were from the Azores, and they would come, and I think it was on Wednesday nights, they would practice their folk dancing in the gymnasium, and they danced barefoot, and they had these beautiful costumes on and no electric instruments. They, just all hand instruments. And I remember going to sleep at night, listening to that, the thumping of their feet on the floor and the swirling and the moving and the yells. And it was just a powerful, wonderful place to live.
That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about how you construct your pieces?
Yeah, they're built from wire. And I'll show you one here that's just in the works. With a lot of them, I start with a base, start in with the uprights, and then just start adding and building. And a lot of this, the structure of this really goes back to my days growing up in the Kensington Market with the beautiful old Victorian row houses that were then turned into, family stores on the main floor, and the family would live above. And there was an old fire hall on the corner of the street that I lived on that had a really tall tower. So a lot of that kind of imagery comes in, but I start figuring out pretty early where I want the movement to be and to go. And I start adding the wheels in and then just build and construct. In a lot of ways, the whole piece tells me what to do after a certain point. It speaks to me and just begins to tell stories. And I build according to that. And then get up to the this stage where I have all the mechanics figured out and the whole piece is working. And then I just start, finishing it off from there. I take the pulleys are all wooden. I take them out. I have the whole skeleton powder coated, and then I put it back together. And then start adding in the color that you see in a piece like this. And that's really where the story comes in. The look of the stained glass windows in the church I went to. I was an altar boy in a church. I like the contrast of in the church, there was a lot of dark and light contrast that was very beautiful. But then, the neighborhood and I guess my own disposition is light, whimsical, joyful. I like the pieces to exude joy, to give people delight. And it was always really neat at the shows, the Redwood shows, where people would come into the booth, they'd see them, they'd say, "Oh, I love your work, it's gorgeous." And I'd say, "Well, touch it." And they say, "Oh, we can't do that, we don't touch art." I said, "No, touch it right here." And then they would turn, and then their faces would just light up, like just seeing the movement occur. So the color itself and the shapes and the forms, the story it's telling, I think bring people to one level of joy. But then once it starts moving, I think it just takes people to another level. And it over and over, I've had people say, "Oh, this is how I dreamed when I was a child. This is what I saw when I was a child." And I mean, for a while, we had people coming in every show. There'd be at least one person that came in that would just start weeping, start crying, because they just felt it was taking them back to, to things deep within themselves that I guess were being repressed, and they wanted, this was releasing. It was just giving them joy. Here's the houses on the street that I grew up on. The Portuguese people in particular, coming from the Azores, they just painted these old Victorian houses with really bright colors. It was just beautiful to see. And I've obviously exaggerated them a bit, the way mind works and memory works. And this is me flying my bike down the street.
Well, that's cool. I think Cindy Lou Who lives in that top house. Hey, I want to thank you for creating almost like an exhibitor booth at the show, because that white background really makes everything pop. You did a great job there.
Thank you. If I move too slightly against the table, the whole thing may crumble and fall. But I guess your viewers would remember my booth as a result.
Right.
So you draw a lot of inspiration from your childhood. So when did you create your first piece?
I've been I'd like to feel I've been an artist my whole life. I started my career full-time as an artist in 88, so 33 years ago. This particular series, I was a painter, and I just sort of, after 20 years, I had enough. I was really tired. My wife, a long story short, my wife and I ended up in Germany with our two younger children, took a sabbatical. And it was over there when I'd left sort of everything at home behind that this wire sculpture emerged. And one thing that really impressed me, I've always liked moving stuff. And just like the previous artist, George, that was talking about, I was fascinated with cars as a boy, and then with bicycles and motorcycles. And in Europe, I saw the line shaft and pulley drive system that they used to use in old factories, where you had a shaft running down the center up high with pulleys on it. And then belts would run off it to run different machines that people were operating. And I just thought, what a neat way of connectedness within one large plant or organism almost. And that really inspired me to have these machines set up in such a way where you have one drive system here going up and spreading out and running, motorizing, basically activating all sorts of different elements that move within it. And in many ways, it's sort of like us as a society, right? There's, one person drives another person who drives another person. We're all interconnected. We all work together, and something beautiful is created out of it. I like the industrial look too. Even just using the crisscrosses. The house that we lived in the Kensington Market had a fire escape up the side of it because our apartment was up above where this gymnasium was. And I remember with my brother when we were quite young, climbing up these crisscross members that held the fire escape together. So all of this is really coming back to me from when I was 8, 9, 10, 11 years old.
Well, thanks, James. This has been great. And I think you've given some real nice insight into your thinking and your construction of your pieces to our audience. And I hope they enjoyed it. I did.
Oh, good. I just really want to, bring joy and delight. There's a lot of darkness, and I think that, light work that ignites something within people, reawakens the child within them. I think it's important, worthwhile doing, and I like bringing that pleasure to people, especially when they can touch it and move it themselves.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see your next pieces at our next live event, hopefully in the summer or so of 2021. So thanks for being with us tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've just really enjoyed the Redwood shows. Rick got me into them, and he really encouraged me. And I just missed the whole bunch of you, seeing you at the shows and having fun together.
We do too. Yeah.
We'll be back together soon. Good to see you. Bye, Lynn.
Bye.
All the best from Canada.